And then out of darkness, there was an essence in its creation of light. Now, my dear friends, you may have heard this in the creation story from religious perspectives from our Bible, in the book of Genesis. Now, we are on a mission to truly create a new world in a new era. But in order to do so, we have to begin to look into and discover how our present earth was formed and look at the symbolic nature of what everything around us on earth and this universe means to us. Now, this scripture talk about out of darkness. What does that mean and signify in our everyday lives? And now part of our new co-creation story here on earth. Dark in its simple definitions means a little of no light, an object not reflecting any light in its full luminosity. Now, we begin to see that we live in a cosmic universe that is filled with what is called dark matter. Dark matter representing matters or components in our universe that is disconnected from its gravitational force and not fully reflecting its luminous light. Now, the topic of light and dark is so pivotal right now as I'll begin to correlate it to what it signifies within us in our everyday lives. But let's first look at cosmic and scientific perspective as we now continue to co-create here on earth. We begin to see that through the creation, through the eons of ages, and what science has pretty much discovered is we here living on earth are full of life. The breath of life, the prana, the air we breathe. We are gifted with beautiful, magnificent light force radiation from a beautiful sun here in our Milky Way galaxy. We have water here to continue to give us that divine flow and source of creation. And we are standing on this dynamic earth, sharing and breathing life with the wonderful trees, animals, and living and breathing organisms here on earth. But in our cosmic universe, what surrounds us? What is it made of? We have seen through scientific discoveries that of course there exists, about 30% in its composition, and dark energy, 69% in its composition, and about 0.03% of just ordinary matter. Now, what is that? We begin to see that as we fully look into the scientific discoveries, dark matter could just be, like what they call quote-unquote dwarfs or, wormholes or stars after they explode, of course they feature, because maybe it's dark in nature, the color dark, it's not visible to the human eye. When you close your eye like this, of course, the sun is reflecting to you, and as I close my eyes right now, I begin to see rays even because my eyes is closed, but the sun's spark and radiation is still shining through. Now, if it was nighttime and I was placed in a dark room, closing my eyes, I would just see an essence of dark all around me. So that's what surrounds our universe. And we begin to see that in order for life to be co-created, as they say, we're all made from stardust, the stars collapsed. And so the dark matter surrounding us has no gravitational pull, does not reflect the radiation creation of light, and so there cannot be life existing. That's why they tend to see, which we will begin to see as we continue our co-creation story, that there is in fact life outside of Earth. Other planets, other Milky Way galaxies, stars, and so many other things our human mind can't comprehend. But as we begin to evolve and emerge into a multi-dimensional high states of consciousness, we of course will begin to see and connect with everything, especially the life that lives outside of us here on Earth. Now, why I share this very important topic of light and dark is to show you that. Let's defer a little bit from the scientific discovery, because this is very important. We are often being told, 3D world, now, as I shared before, light, we all think is something good, and I express that life is simply life. It's an expression of love and certain things that keeps or regenerates or life, humanness, and evolution here on Earth to continue to live and breathe in everyday lives. And as we begin to see, greater cosmos, the stars, just being there and not reflecting life is like a state of nothingness. It's there, but no life is being breathed through. Now, the very significance of that is to show us that when we think of dark, it is usually meant in a negative connotation or symbolic nature. We begin to see, even in its own definition of what is to be dark, is a part of the definition signifying of wickedness and being evil. Now, as co-creators in Earth, I ask you, wickedness and evil, because that is part of the co-creation process. As we begin to see our very essence is to express ourselves with life and light and love to continue. Now, it's not necessarily, as most people will say, all of that is neutral, but let's look at some things that we can see as light. Being, expressing hatred, we could say anger, we could just say, control, possessiveness. We begin to see that in a 3D world, we were sort of conditioned, in a certain pattern. I could say that as a human being, I was conditioned in that way. But as I continued to awaken, I had to begin to ask myself, wow, this symbolic meaning of darkness, is that what I want to continue being in my beingness, to continue in this co-creation process here? Now, I'll use this example even in astrological terms. Gemini and its significance of what it represents is the twins. They often say the light and dark twin, Now, this was purposefully designed and written in astrology as Geminis represents, the cosmic feature of what the oneness principle is all about. The divine feminine, the divine masculine. And so we begin to see that Gemini was separated, And we now have to see that this great stage of separation, of showing one feature of ourselves is like one feature as that, whether they show it as the feminine, which for most of our 3D world, we begin to see that the feminine has been put down so much, as a submissive part of each and every one of us. And the masculine was kind of put up. But, quote unquote, what is being now orchestrated is to show the masculine in a certain dark light, like, if we still stay stay on astrology and what Capricorn represents in our astrological, it shows like Capricorn is the father principle, even though the sign of Capricorn is a feminine sign. You see, both is actually needed. They needed to show that Capricorn is actually feminine in nature, but it represents the quote-unquote father. And then when we turn to that, we have to see the symbolic nature to see the father representing or creator. You know, even in biblical terms, we always feel like the father was, you know, the quote-unquote man. You know, they always gave like the masculine aspect of ourselves, a more dominant feature in our everyday life. But what we have to begin to see, wow, the masculine feature is basically the logical action taker attribute in our everyday lives, the mental body or brain. But without the feminine co-creative feature, the nurturer, and I repeat, the co-creative feature, the feminine aspect of ourselves or divine gifts, what can we birth more children, birth more life will not be able to coexist. So we see this great orchestration going on now to shift us more into our masculine nature and break free from being in our feminine nature. But none is better than the other. But it's so vital that we merge these two back together. Now, Geminis, as I continue to express, has this great spiritual nature and oneness within itself that has been separated throughout the ages of time. And so as I use these great examples to just show you what it means, whether you have Gemini in your chart, you're a Gemini, it's just to show you the significance. Everything is metaphorical. Now as I use the depiction of the sign Gemini in our astrological written text, we see that Geminis So we begin to see that, you know, we do not want to continue to partake in this separation stage. Now, the oneness principle is in fact merging back to our divine feminine and our divine masculine, and fully healing the inner child wounds within us from this lifetime and from our past lifetime. Now, the Capricorn feature in our astrological world is a divine feminine sign, you know, one of the three divine feminines. And so we have seen that what Capricorn represents the fatherhood, the parent in our astrological world, or structures, tradition, political, legislative, everything that oversees our government. Now we're going to correlate it to our dear creator source who created us in the image and likeness. We are in his image and likeness. So the creator source, or dear divine sun in our galaxy, and the greater cosmos and everything that contributed, or star system that contributed to our creator presence, created us in his image with that co-creative essence of that divine feminine, all our gifts here on earth. And so we begin to see that previously in different ages and era, the divine feminine was put down as something submissive, poor, not something that should be seen or heard, and the divine masculine something that should just be the dynamic feature in our everyday lives, taking precedence over everything. Now, what we're beginning to see is something being transmuted and orchestrated by this great of a nature that's not in its life essence to continue life. If we look at what even the Father feature, the one that's going to discipline us and punish us, as they would even say in religious perspective, the Creator would punish us for that is far, far, far from the truth. So as we continue to see that there exists that matter, because we see that dark is not going to push us into the co-creative stage, so the quote-unquote lower vibrations that we have been conditioned into. Now let me share with you current stage in our evolution, what dark is being represented and symbolized. You see, we have been pushed into a state where we have pretty much gone into the bottom pits of our evolutionary stage. Now we're now seeing that not only are we rising in our consciousness as we continue to go through our awakening stage, we go through the dark night of the soul. There again lies the dark. So we have to begin to see that it's not necessarily that there's not darkness or darkness is not needed. We have to begin to redefine the symbolism of what it truly means and signifies. Not that old 3D definition that you need darkness, sort of wickedness and evil and lower vibrations, but see it more from a universal cosmic perspective. Now, as we continue to shift, we see that this transition has led us seeing through the light essence what's truly going on. It's usually, greater cosmos designed when light is bent and it's refracted. The shadow is just the definition given to it, and of course we were programmed to live and be a certain way, and we're shifting from that, so we have to get away from that. But what we are beginning to see is that there exists other breeds and other species here on our continent Earth. And if we begin to look back into the timelines and ages of time, we've always seen that our 3D world has sort of been depicted and orchestrated as a structured world. If you want to quote unquote go back into almost like a slavery mentality of a world of work, where you either working for little to next to nothing for that great energy that you're putting. You have to work hard. Let's look back at even maybe some of us in past lives and even our ancestors doing manual labor for no return. And as we begin to see, we have sort of been hijacked by this great species and breeds, many, not of human nature, that now has used this time, this co-creative time, to take us back into time, as I stated before, the Atlantic era. Take us back into time, Atlantic era, Roman times, all sorts of ancient times. But what I want to share on this topic of darkness, very reptilian animalistic nature that do not want to see us evolve and co-create into a new era where light exists. And as they continue to remain behind the shadows, they of course use what is quote unquote, as I explained in its previous definition, the dark matter of the evilness and wickedness and lower vibrational features. Especially when many go through their dark night of this, so they see that that's the time to try to hijack the minds and souls of many people. Stealing their joy, not allowing them to see their true purpose as co-creators during this present time. And this great orchestration of this pandemic has been used. All this testing and all of, the quote unquote this great shift was all about. It was basically, and now this has been going through the ages of time, through, the system that we have, health industry. But we begin to fully see and awaken, our DNA strands being used for testing to pretty much use science as a way to continue their own breeding here on Earth. Now, if we look even into some scientific discoveries of Darwin's selection of natural human evolution, and survival of the fetus, and the species that is most fit and have the great attributes in order to continue to survive. We begin to see that this almost taken over the minds and souls of many, as we say, quote unquote, that either live in darkness based on doing certain, rituals, witchcraft, you name it, all of the lower vibrational things. Now, dark in its natural essence, as I've explained many times, is neutral. It's nothing wrong with it, as it's part of the breeding process. But to continue the breeding process, to see to it that, as we continue to co-create, wanted to take over our human genome species for their own benefit of breeding their certain breeds of their non-human existence, because they know that without us, we are such dynamic, multi-dimensional beings that they cannot continue to exist here. And as we see that, like I said many times, we see that so much symbolism is going on. It's taking us back into certain timeline, the Atlantic age, which was the age of Aquarius, where technology was misused. We see, I can attest to that in my everyday life, the great, spying and hacking, just like using the computer, technology, electricity, phone, you name it, all sorts of technological advancements to tap into our personal lives, to feel that it can be used to tap into even our emotional and mental body, as a way to, let's say that we lived in a low vibrational condition world, and let's say you're doing something on your computer and all of a sudden you see that remotely something is being just taken over your computer and you can't do what you're supposed to do. And we see this whole transhumanism AI agenda. Now it goes even further than that. This whole transhumanism agenda to turn us into a unisex breed. Transhuman, the word trans. Because they know that unisex breed, we can co-create. Now, the creator source created us in its own image and likeness, the feminine and the masculine within us, and so this is what needed in order to continue to exist. Now, this whole agenda to turn us into unisex and to, of course, use our DNA to co-create their own source of almost like, like to take away our life source energy. That's why you always hear, protect your energy. And if you look into esoteric and even occultic texts, you will see that, the signs are wanting to have an essence of light, essence which is from a higher source, in order to feel powerful, to feel dominion. Now, this is the true representation of darkness in our current world. Control mechanisms, manipulations, all of that, the lies, not living in the truth, presenting yourself as somebody who you not truly are, and very common right now is trying to use telepathy to send mixed messages to many as they go through their awakening stage. Now we have to begin to see to it that we have to get back into a state of our heart in order to co-create. So the reason for sharing on this topic of darkness is to see to it that, yes, darkness exists, the night sky is being dark. But what we've been told that it is, as I explained earlier, even with the sign of Gemini, is not what it truly represents. Dark matter is, of course, an integral feature in the co-creation here on Earth. But it has been sort of redefined as something that it's truly not. So let's see to it that as we continue to fully understand what the co-creation stage is all about, that we begin to see that, wow, we are not to remain in this 3D structure of explanations and theories. Let's step into a higher consciousness to not just formulate our own theories to connect deeply with the greater cosmos, but to be an integral participant of the new creative life here on Earth as we continue to humanly evolve and let go of all the lower vibrational nature and not let this other breed continue to oversee and take over all life force. So I urge you to fully connect with the dark matter in the greater cosmos, to use it in the co-creation story, creating the most beautiful human